You know, I will say this, with all of the fragrances that we have available to us right at our fingertips these days, there's no reason why you shouldn't be the best smelling guy in every room that you walk into. Because there are so many options out there, and that just makes it easier to kind of stand out, because a lot of people get lost in the sea of options and they stick to the basics. A lot of guys who aren't watching content and being involved in the fragrance community, they're not going to be working their way through all of the flankers and all of these different releases, and maybe even going back farther to some more forgotten hidden gems. They're just kind of sticking to the basics, right? And if you want to smell better than 95% of the guys out there, it isn't really all that hard. You just got to branch out of your comfort zone just a little bit. And I'm going to help you today. We've got 8 fragrances we're going to be going over that will do just that. There's actually a couple kind of, I wouldn't say hidden gems, but forgotten fragrances in here, you know, because all of these, they've been, you know, noticed at one point. People have talked about them, and I think all of them have earned the respect that they deserved at one point. But I do think that a few of them just aren't really utilized anymore, but they do still work really well. And again, that's good for us because it makes it easier for us to stand out. Now, this first one is brand new, and it is a flanker within a line that is vast. You know, this fragrance line has so many releases, a lot of which have been like limited edition summer releases over the years, which makes them pretty collectible, and it is kind of fun to try to pick those up. But now this one, again, it just came out here this year, and it is really not a half bad release and not a bad way to stand out. Lamal Lover. It's got vanilla, ambroxan, pepper, and sea notes. Really interesting about this one, you know, it's like Lamal Popeye and Lamal Superman. They left an impression on me, because ever since we had those, I've always been looking for that next best fresh release from the Lamal lineup. However, this is not it, unfortunately. So sorry to say if I got your hopes up. I've already covered this one in a video. If you saw that, you would know that, yeah, this isn't that. You know, right now, as far as what you can buy, at least relatively easily, I would say one of the best fresh ones within the line is Lamal On Board. But even that one now is kind of getting a little bit iffy, being out of stock a lot. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on there, but it probably doesn't look too good. But like I said, this one just came out. It's popping up here and there on discounters. And while it's not like the freshness that we would, you know, love to have from Popeye and Superman, you do get a little bit of a freshness from it, a little bit of a kind of a summery feel, even though it still does primarily have the vanilla, lavender, sweet aromatic deal going on that's been used throughout the entirety of the line. So yeah, you know, when I saw this one launched and I saw the note breakdown, I had high hopes. But again, just because it's not that doesn't mean it's bad, right? You know, it's all about perspective. And if you just kind of look at this one on its own and not trying to compare it to anything else, you know, wishful thinking, it's not a half bad release. I don't think it's nearly as good as the new Labo Paradise Garden, however, which also could be a great fit for this video, but I don't want to over feature that one just yet. So yeah, if you can get your hands on a bottle of this for, you know, not a price over retail, and definitely, you know, go overpaying for something like this. And if you could get it for below retail, that's something I would consider. Okay, next up we have Herrera Mystery Tobacco. So no surprise, it has tobacco, tonka bean, patchouli. What a fantastic fragrance. You know, it's August and the leaves are already falling here. It's weird. It was 73 degrees today and cloudy. Woke up, it was like 58. It was actually cold this morning, and while I'm not really ready for summer to leave yet, it's my favorite time of the year. When I smell things like this and when I walk out mornings like that, man, it does get me a little bit excited for fall. And a lot of it's because I love fall and winter fragrances. You know, when I started off, it used to be all about freshies, aquatics, because that's just kind of what I started with, and that's all I knew. But man, at this point, I'm addicted to the complexity and richness of a lot of these cooler weather blends, this being one of them. And the best way to describe this one, really, is it's a mixture between Parfums de Marly Carlisle and Mancera Red Tobacco. It doesn't have the oud, super strong kind of earthiness that red tobacco has. It more so takes a Carlisle approach, being a bit more smooth. However, you can definitely see that it is kind of similar to both in its own ways. But man, I'll tell you what, as a lover of tobacco, this checks off all of the boxes right here. Absolutely amazing stuff that pretty much nobody around you is going to be wearing. Now, this one is cost prohibitive, which definitely helps with that, right? So if this is out of your budget, don't go and, feel like you have to go buy it and scrape a bunch of money together. There are other options that we're going to cover. But if you do have deeper pockets, you want to treat yourself to something nice, this is a great one, especially as we're going to be heading into fall and winter. This is something you could wear throughout fall and winter months, all the way into, February, March of next year. I mean, you could really get your money's worth out of this one if you wanted to. And these confidential fragrances, I believe is the line, the confidential line or something from Herrera, these more premium ones, they're no joke. They're not to be slept on. These are impressive. They do command a price tag, but I'll tell you what, these are way better than I thought they'd be. Next up, we have Ralph's Club Elixir. We are into the elixirs now, and some are good, some aren't, but this one is good. This one's got orris, leather, lavender, and olibanum, so you're still getting the lavender, sage, kind of aromatic, blue, kind of Y smell, YSLY. That's kind of what the eau de parfum and even the parfum has going on a little bit. Just kind of their little twist on that style. So that's still there, it's still present, and it's a very common smell these days, especially the aromatic package like that. It's just being used all over the place. But man, dude, that smells great. That patchouli, olibanum, bit of iris combination, it gives it a little bit of a spicy kick, a little bit of a warm sweetness, a little bit of a creaminess. And that patchouli especially is what really gives this one a nice bump, a nice texture. It smells phenomenal. If the eau de parfum and even the parfum were a bit boring for you, which I can understand that being the case, this one shouldn't be, at least not as much. It does have a bit more excitement to it, especially to someone who has smelled tons and tons of things like a lot of us have. But it still is down to earth in the sense of, they know that they're Ralph Lauren, they know that they're a designer brand, and they know that they're appealing to the masses. So it still does that very well, just with a little bit of a different twist. And I'm not 100% sure what the prices are doing on this one right now. I say no to retail. I say no to retail most of the time, so don't go out and do that necessarily. But if you can get it below on discounters for a price that you believe to be reasonable for something like this, then I think it's worth a pickup. It really is a good one, and most guys aren't going to be wearing this. Next up, we have Hugo Boss The Scent Magnetic. This one's got that famous maninka fruit, some vanilla, and then bran. So you kind of get a powdery smell from the bran, essentially is kind of how it comes across, almost like a wheat powdery undertone, nice creamy vanilla, and then a fruity, unique smell, which would come from the maninka fruit, which on its own is very unique and hardly ever used aside from the scent lineup. I mean, that's kind of what this line is built around. And it really does come together quite nicely. This is probably one of the scents that is going to utilize maninka heavily, or at least unless they're taking a break from it with the new Elixir that came out this year, which did not list it off. Not really sure what's going on there. It's weird that they would just now start to get away from it, so I don't know if that's a permanent thing or not. But regardless, man, this is one to check out for sure. This is kind of one of those scents that, again, it has a different twist, kind of like I was talking about with Ralph's Club Elixir, but they're still a designer and they know that, and it's really cool to see these brands kind of play around with that. They're getting a little bit unique, a little bit different, but yet it still circles back to being a designer level, mass-pleasing scent that most people are going to appreciate. However, those little changes are going to set you apart from 95+% of the guys out there, which is what we're looking for. Next up, we have Rabon Black XS. This is the 2018 version here. This is kind of the current version, what you would get if you bought it right now on discounters or retail or whatever, the kind of newer bottle style. It's got lemon, praline, cinnamon, and some just kind of broad citruses in here. It's kind of what we got going on. This stuff smells incredible. It's kind of a really unique mixture of, again, citruses and then sweet notes and then some aromatics and then some woody notes. It's kind of all over the board. And so is Pure XS as well, which is another one of my favorites. I love that stuff as well, but this is kind of Definitely not a hidden gem, but something that you're just not going to see as much of these days. You know, back when it was in the older bottle style, it was pretty popular, you know, and it just makes sense. About everything Paco Rabanne does gets popular for a little while, and they start making a bunch of flankers, and then that original gets diluted, and the flankers get all the spotlight on them. Invictus 1 million, we've seen it all. That's kind of what's happened here a little bit. Now they don't have near the amount of flankers within this style lineup, but more of the attention would be on like Pure XS, for example. And so while this one was utilized pretty heavily at one point, I don't think so much anymore. I think everybody's kind of moved on from it. And you got to keep in mind, most people out there, they're not going to have the scent memory like we do. If something got popular for a little while and they smell it all over the place and they identify it, if it goes away for a little while, chances are if you kind of make a resurgence and you start wearing this one, they're probably not going to put 2 and 2 together. And what I'm trying to say is I still think this one is going to be a very viable option if you do want to stand out, especially up against a lot of people wearing blue fragrances and Sauvage and things like that. Next up, we have Bentley for Men Silver Lake. This kind of has a little bit of a Acqua di Gio Essenza deal going on, maybe a little bit of Acqua di Gio eau de parfum, which kind of smells a little bit like Essenza. Basically, it's kind of like a more aromatic take on the original Acqua di Gio. That's kind of what Essenza was popular for. They discontinued it. This has been out. The eau de parfum has been out. That's kind of where this one fits in. Maybe even get bits and pieces of a Profondo feel as well, somewhat. But it's just kind of a heavier, richer version of a light Acqua di Gio, essentially. So instead of being all about the citruses and the C notes, you're adding a bit more substance to it. So this one has violet leaves, lemon, mint, and musk, a little bit green and minty off the top, kind of has a kind of leafy, aromatic freshness to it from the violet leaves, which is a very unique note that always stands out. So you do pick up on that here. And that's not something that's really used in the Acqua di Gios. So that's kind of what sets this one apart a little bit. The other main thing is going to be the price point. You know, the Acqua di Gio fragrances are pretty much always going to be $100 or more. This is into the 40s, I think 40, 45 for this. So, you know, you're looking at a pretty big variance in price, which means a lot more people can get into this one a lot easier. But again, you're not going to see the average Joe out there picking up Bentley for Men Silver Lake. This isn't really something that's going to be in all of the department stores where they're buying it at full retail in person. This is kind of more of a discounter transaction, which a lot of people just don't know about unless they're in the community. So yet another good way to have something that is tested and proven as far as the DNA is concerned, but a unique little twist. Okay, yet another forgotten fragrance, right? This one been out for a very long time, but man, you just don't see this one getting the love anymore. It's Ralph Lauren Purple Label. So Ralph Lauren, they're doing something right because they made it in here twice, but this one is just remarkable. It's got blackberry, oak moss, sage, and coriander. A lot of oak moss, I will say. It gives it a very green, woody, and earthy smell that you pick up on pretty much instantly, whether it be spraying it in the air or even just kind of smelling the dry down when you pull the cap off. It's there, and it gives it kind of an older school smell, a little bit more of a classic smell, although not too much. That blackberry fruitiness off the top, that's really good. And that's not something you see used hardly at all. The coriander, the sage, giving you a nice aromatic boost. So it's fresh, it's clean, just with a little fruity twist and a little hint of a sweetness, but not a ton. And then again, just kind of woody and earthy. Smells fantastic. There is not a whole lot out there like this. There's Bond No. 9 Bleecker Street, which came out after, that uses blueberry instead. And that's a fantastic fragrance as well. They also use oak moss there. It's also a very green kind of spring scent. And while it does take some inspiration, I will give credit, it does its own thing a bit as well. But, you know, other than that, man, there's just not a whole lot out there that's really doing it this way. This isn't the trend. This isn't what's in right now. People aren't emulating this. They're emulating blue fragrances or sweet scents, right? And this is neither. Yet another good way to stand out. Next up, we have Dust on the Bottle, Gentleman Eau de Parfum Boise. It's got iris, sandalwood, and cacao pods, so a little bit of a chocolatey sweetness, nice creamy woody sandalwood note, which smells amazing, and then a nice little visit of iris, which is used in the eau de parfum and Reserve Privé, and quite a few of them. Even the Eau de Toilette, the 2017, has some iris in there, even though it's primarily fresh. But this is a great one. It's another one that's kind of forgotten about somewhat, maybe not as much as some of the others. But, you know, for me, I'm always thinking about the Reserve Privé. The new Gentleman's Society Extreme is going to be one that's going to be in high rotation for me. And I just feel like this one's kind of in a weird spot where you just don't see about it all that often. But I do think it is a very, very good option if you want to stand out, maintain a lot of mass appeal, and just have something that's kind of exciting. You know, I do think it's kind of has its place in the regard that it's not as sweet as the Eau de Parfum or Reserve Privé, but it also isn't as fresh as the Eau de Toilette Intense or just the Eau de Toilette or the Cologne version. Kind of shoots more down the middle, which I think a lot of people would appreciate. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for me. Some fantastic fragrances that will have you standing out and smelling better than 95% of guys out there. Although it could be 99%, depending on where you live. If you live in a small town out in the middle of nowhere, probably darn near 100%. I have a mailing list and texting list that you can sign up to at the link and phone number down below. So every time something rare, discontinued, or hard to find comes into stock, I send out a notification to the email list and to the texting list, allowing you the opportunity to buy whatever it is that is currently in stock for a very short time, because a lot of the rare, discontinued things and good deals sell quick. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.